Good evening. In just a few days, 800,000 Americans, many of them still on the job, will go without another paycheck. Others who rely on the work they do will have to go without vital government services. The federal court system is running out of money. The FBI Agents Association says the Bureau has lost several informants in terrorism investigations. Airports are backing up because unpaid TSA screeners are calling in sick and working other jobs to make ends meet. CNN has obtained a TSA internal email asking screeners at slow airports to move to busier locations harder hit by the sickouts. Now, keep it honest, before we talk about any of the late developments on day 32 of the government shutdown, before we hear from President Trump or Senator Elizabeth Warren, who joins us tonight, I want you to hear from some of those 800,000 men and women who work for all of us.
How many of you are running out of money? Raise your hand. All of you.
I don't know how I'm going to pay the $250 a month for his medication. My husband and I have put ourselves on a macaroni and cheese and grilled cheese sandwich diet, so therefore the kids can eat.
Today, Senate Republicans introduced a bill along the lines of what President Trump is demanding, including money for a border wall, temporary protection for some but not all DACA kids, and sharp new restrictions on lawful asylum seekers. The vote on it could come Thursday, a day before payday. Senators may also vote Thursday on a Democratic bill to reopen the government temporarily, but not fund a wall. Neither measure is expected to pass, but a lot could change in the next 2 days. However, keep it honest, some things will likely not change. One is that people overwhelmingly blame the president over the Democrats for the shutdown, 55 to 32% in recent CNN polling. Two, as much as the president has lately tried to pin the blame elsewhere, it appears that the people in that poll took him at his word when he said this.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security. I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it. The last time you shut it down, it didn't work. I will take the mantle of shutting down. And I'm going to shut it down for border security. But we believe you.
In other words, the buck stops with him, except, as you know, he doesn't really believe that.
Does the buck stop with you over this shutdown?
The buck stops with everybody.
Okay, so the buck doesn't stop with him. Hey, it's only $1 after all. Anyway, the president has made it clear, though, that what he shut the government down for, his wall, is non-negotiable. But even that's open to question. As our political reporters and analysts have been saying for weeks in this program, Republican lawmakers may be leery of fully committing to any kind of deal-making because they don't fully trust the president will have their backs. They remember the deal he backed out of at the last minute when right-wing talk show personalities objected to it. They remember when he said the buck stops with everyone. They may even remember that televised session a year ago when he told a stunned Senator Dianne Feinstein that he would like to pass a clean bill to protect DACA kids first and would later, quote, take all the heat you want to give me, unquote, for a comprehensive immigration bill. Now, minutes after he said what he said to Senator Feinstein, a Republican lawmaker with cameras rolling pulled him in the opposite direction. Then the president said essentially he'd be good with just about anything.
This group comes back, hopefully with an agreement. This group and others from the Senate, from the House, comes back with an agreement. I'm signing it. I mean, I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it because I have a lot of confidence in the people in this room that you're going to come out with something really good.
Well, that's not how it panned out a year ago, and he seems far less accommodating now, but you get the point that it's hard to tell what ultimately this president wants. Is it building a wall? Perhaps. He certainly promised that. Then again, he also promised that taxpayers would not pay for it. Now he's shutting down the government until they do. He said he'd take the heat. He didn't. He said he'd take the mantle. He hasn't. He said a lot of things, and you can agree or disagree with any, all, or none of it and still wonder where he really stands and how this shutdown will really end. More now on where things stand from CNN's Jim Acosta joins us from the White House. So where do things stand right now?
It's a really good question, Anderson. Our folks up on Capitol Hill tell us that there are going to be some competing bills up for votes later on this week. Looks like Thursday, one which is coming from the Republican side, Mitch McConnell, is essentially the president's plan to fund the wall down on the border and reopen the government. There's a Democratic plan that's essentially the one that's coming out of the House that would reopen the government. Both of these would do it for a brief period of time, but it would not have funding for the president's border wall. Both of those bills are unlikely to pass. And at this point, it was interesting. Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, was talking to reporters. She didn't do it in the briefing room because we haven't had a briefing in more than a month, but she was doing it in the driveway here, and she did not rule out the possibility that the president could sign that bill. But I talked to a White House official just a short while ago who said, how likely is that Democratic bill actually going to get out of the Congress and over here to the president's desk? So that doesn't seem very likely either. And so what we're really staring at the prospect of, Anderson, is this shutdown grinding on, as we've been saying over and over again, with no end in sight.
Is there going to be a State of the Union address a week from now? I mean, do we know at this point?
The White House says they're moving forward with plans for a State of the Union up on Capitol Hill, just as if Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, had never essentially disinvited the president from giving that speech. At this point, Anderson, I just talked to a White House official who said there are lots of options on the table. Anything is possible, this official said, with some planning. That means that they would like to have that State of the Union speech up on Capitol Hill. They could also deliver one over here at the White House, although, as we saw with that border speech that the president did recently from the Oval Office, the president didn't like the way that turned out very much. There is also the idea floating around, and we understand from talking to White House officials that this is under discussion, that the president could actually hold a campaign-style rally outside of Washington to sort of drum up support for what he wants to do down on the border, or it could be a more subdued speech to supporters. So they're talking about all sorts of possibilities at this point, because this government shutdown has not been resolved, as you said, Anderson, affecting and impacting and hurting millions of Americans across the country.
Jim Acosta, thanks very much. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts has not formally declared she's running for president. She's done everything but. She set up an exploratory committee and is taken to the road, which may soon become the campaign trail. Tonight, she's in Puerto Rico and making her first appearance on CNN since getting started. I spoke to her just a short time ago. Senator Warren, you're in Puerto Rico tonight. Can you explain why you're there, especially so early on in your campaign?
So I've been talking about a government in Washington that works great for the wealthy and the well-connected, but not so much for everyone else. And I've been doing that for a long time. Puerto Rico is one of the prime examples of that. Right here in Puerto Rico, an island that's been devastated both by a financial crisis and by twin hurricanes, right now has a government that is taking money off the island in order to send it to Wall Street and cutting services, healthcare services, schools, right here in Puerto Rico. It's just a prime example of government that works for the rich and the powerful and doesn't work for the people.
Do you believe that the government in D.C. is complicit in in keeping the body count of the actual death toll so low for so long? We've now learned through various studies that thousands of people died in the wake, in the months after the storm. Do you think the government is complicit in that?
The death count in Puerto Rico has been proven to be now in the thousands. And the fact that this administration has refused to acknowledge that and continued to put out reports long after the evidence was available, showing just a very small death count, is just one more way in which the people of Puerto Rico have been disrespected from start to finish since the hurricanes hit.
Just in terms of the shutdown, the Senate's going to vote Thursday on two partisan bills that have no chance of passing both chambers. Is that really the best that lawmakers can do? Does either side have a right to be proud of what's happening right now?
Look, we need to open the government. People are working jobs. I today was with TSA agents who are out doing their jobs trying to keep us safe, and they're not getting paid. People have been shut out from the jobs that they need to do. The government needs to be reopened. There are two ways that can happen immediately. Either Donald Trump could say he's ready to sign something to open the government, or Mitch McConnell could just put the same budget bill on the floor of the Senate that was voted overwhelmingly in December. This is a manufactured crisis, and it's starting to impose real pain on families all across this country. Federal agents are not political pawns in some game that the Republicans want to play. We need to get the government open.
The president's party, though, controls the White House and the Senate. Democrats only control the House. Do you ever think, look, the realistic end game is that Republicans get 2/3 of what they want and Democrats have to settle for the shorter straw? Isn't that, I mean, how the balance of power works?
Well, let's talk about the balance of power. There are two co-equal branches of government, the President of the United States and the Congress. The Congress of the United States, in December, the Senate voted on a funding bill that was a compromise between Democrats and Republicans. The House held it up. So when the House came back into session after the new year in 2019, they passed the funding bill. We have the votes on the congressional side. But so far, Mitch McConnell is saying, no, the only one who has any power in Washington is Donald Trump. And he's saying he won't bring any bill to the floor of the Senate that can't be passed, that the president won't sign into law. That's basically just abdicating the responsibility of Congress. We had a compromise proposal. Democrats and Republicans, everybody had signed off, ready to go. And then Donald Trump blew it up for his own reasons and said he would be proud to shut down the government. Well, that's what he's done. And we are now sitting here in the longest shutdown in American history, and it's hurting people all across this country. It needs to stop. Reopen the government.
I want to ask you a little bit about the presidential race. I know you said you're delighted that Senator Kamala Harris has announced her candidacy for president. Are you concerned at all about how she and other, I guess, centrists, you might call them, may run or attempt to paint you as too far to the left? Is too far to the left a mantle you would happily embrace?
Look, I'm out talking about the economic issues, about how government works, about what's happening to middle-class families, working families all across this country, why the path has gotten rockier and rockier, and why it has gotten so much rockier for people of color. This is what I've worked on all of my life. And I got into the Senate race in 2012 to talk about these issues, to fight for these families. Now, here I am as we look at 2020, just right in the center of this fight. This is what I'm going to continue to talk about. And I'm delighted that there are lots of Democrats who want to talk about ideas, who want to talk about a way to build a stronger America. I believe in that. You know, I'm somebody whose daddy ended up as a janitor. I got my chance in a college that cost $50 a semester. And I got a chance to be a public school teacher, a chance to be a college professor, and a chance to be a United States Senator, because America invested in that opportunity. I believe in investing in opportunities for our kids. I think that's how we build a real future in this country, and I'm out there and willing to fight for it.
So to voters who look at the economy, see it booming, credit, among other things, the president's tax cut for that, I'm wondering what you have to say. Have the tax cuts had a positive effect on the economy?
Oh, look, giving away $1.5 trillion to corporations, to billionaires, to the wealthy and the well-connected, while young people are struggling with student loan debt, while families can't have prescriptions filled, while infrastructure crumbles around us. That's not how we build a future in this country. You know, the way I see this is it is this fundamental question. Who do we think government ought to work for? This economy? Sure, there's some great numbers. The rich got fabulous tax breaks. Wall Street has been up and down, but back up. But the lived experience of tens of millions of people across this country is the squeeze. It's about flat wages and increased costs for housing, for health insurance, to get your kids educated. You know, we have a country that's getting richer and richer, but the problem is that too much of that wealth is flowing just to a thin slice at the top. and everyone else is getting left behind. That's not how we build a future.
The president has obviously had his fair share of racially charged things to say about you, if not outright racist. Yesterday on Martin Luther King Day, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries called the president the Grand Wizard of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Is that an appropriate thing for a sitting member of Congress to say about the president?
Look, the president has made clear where he stands, and he did that in Charlottesville. He's done it over and over. What matters is that we as Democrats make clear what we stand for and what we're going to fight for. Look, for me, I believe in the worth of every single human being. I think that recognizing that worth, and then as a country, saying we're just going to invest in some opportunities, a level playing field, a chance for a kid who's the daughter of a janitor to be able to go to school, to be able to get an education, to be able to build some real security in her life. I believe that that is the best of America. I believe in an America that reflects our values, but we're going to have to build it together. We're going to have to take our government back. We're going to have to take it away from the wealthy and the well-connected who've turned it in their direction, and we're going to have to make it work again for the people. That's the reason I'm in this.
Just lastly, just in terms of the race, are you confident that you know how to effectively campaign against the president, against his scorched earth tactics? Because, you know, the high road didn't work out for more than a dozen Republican candidates, didn't work out for Hillary Clinton.
You know, I'll tell you something. I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and all three of my brothers live in Oklahoma now. One of them is a Democrat. The other two are not. But I love all three of my brothers. And one of the things we spend a lot of time doing is talking about the things we actually agree on, the values. We want the same things for our kids. We want all of our kids to have basic health care coverage, and we don't want it so that if somebody gets sick, they end up bankrupt as well. We want our kids to be able to get an education, a good education, pre-K, K through 12, and after high school. We want those things. We want our kids to have a future. And yeah, there are places where we disagree about the best place to put that together. But I think that as a people, when we talk about our values, when we talk about the things that we care most about, we can find some common ground and we can build on that ground, and we can make a real commitment, not just to hope it happens, but a real commitment to fight for it, to make it happen. I think that's our opportunity, and I also think it's our responsibility.
Senator Warren, I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Good to talk with you.
Well, more now.
Hi everyone, my name's Mike. I'm the creator of Mox News, and for the last 15 years I have been telling you that as long as I have the support of the community that I serve, Mox News will post videos forever. And that's the truth. As long as I have your support, no one could ever make me stop. Unfortunately, currently, less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of Mox News viewers ever donate, tip, or contribute anything back. Again, let me make that really clear. Much less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% ever give anything back. And to those of you who have donated to Mox News, I want to thank you so much, because it's because of your generosity that we have been able to bring attention to important videos that millions and millions of eyes would have never seen. And I think that that's an amazing thing that we've been able to make happen together. And I can't thank you enough for helping me make that happen. So it's not too late. If you'd like to see Mox News covering the 2020 presidential election, if you can't imagine the 2020 presidential election without Mox News, please, there's still time. You can make a difference. It's easy to make a contribution, donation, or tip. You can go to moxnews.com, or in the text body of this video, there are clickable links to the Patreon page or to the PayPal page. And again, it should take less than 2 minutes to make a donation, and your donation can make a big difference. So I thank you all. Stay cool. One of these days this war is going to end, and it would be awesome if Mox News could be there to celebrate that day with you.